What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. This is Todd, and welcome to my show. I have a very special day where I'm interviewing Starr, who is featured on Millennial Mortgage. Now, before I get into that interview, I must first acknowledge this is my brand new YouTube studio. Please let me know what you guys think. This is all for you. And also, I must apologize. I put this studio together before the interview with So when you see the interview, it's going to be in my regular kind of kitchen spot that isn't as good. But I just got a new microphone. It's this one right here. I think it's a little bit better than my old one. And if I need to get my mouth or closer to it, I will do that in the future. But let me know what you guys think. I have a ton of lights in here right now. Like, I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 6 lights and a D-ring light. So if it's too much light, let me know and I can back some off. And if I need more light, just let me know, and there will be light. Well, without further ado, let's get into the interview with Starr. What's up, peeps? This is Todd, and welcome back to my show. I have a very special guest for you guys today, Starr, who is on YouTube. He was on Millennial Mortgage. He's just an awesome guy, and he was on CNBC Make It for Millennial Mortgage talking about buying his first home. And I wanted to bring him on the show and just say, hey, what's up to everybody? So, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Thanks, Todd, for having me. If you're in the comments right now, drop a comment right now. Make sure you smash the like button and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. I have to do that for him because I love this guy.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, and while you're at it, make sure to check out Starr. You've changed your channel, right? It's no longer the commuter experience. It's just your name.
Yeah. So I went through rebranding.
Okay, got it.
It's funny because, as everyone knows, we had the illness that came about. And I was no longer commuting. Like, I'm staying at home. My commute is literally, I get up, brush my teeth, wash my face, and I'm on the computer. So no more commuter experience. But I also didn't want to limit it to, just commuting. Like, I kind of wanted to open the channel up to like lifestyle, lessons, all that stuff.
Very cool. Awesome. Yeah. So check out Starr, and I'll link your YouTube in the description of this video as well. But I wanted to get on here because I've had a lot of you guys ask me like tips to buying your first house. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that is what your CNBC interview is pretty much all about, right?
Yeah, that's basically what it's all about. I mean, the stigma is like millennials, they're not making enough money. They don't know what to do with their money. They can't own or buy a house. So, fortunately, my fiance and I were able to buy a house in one of the most expensive parts of the country, which is Los Angeles. But we bought it in a suburb of Los Angeles called Gardena. And, there were reasons for that. Like, if you're in downtown LA or if you're in LA proper, it's way more expensive. We're thinking like Beverly Hills, Hollywood. Houses don't go for no less than $1 million. Yeah. So we found one. It's still expensive, right? Since we're in California, it's $500,000. And obviously, if we move to a cheaper place, we could do that too. But given that we save our money, we invest, we had good credit, we were like, let's buy a house.
Awesome. So then, since and you just closed on a second one, right?
Yeah, that's actually true. So I actually haven't shared that, but since you mentioned it, I might as well.
Oh no,
no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We did close on another home. It's an investment, so it's not a home that we live in, and I don't have to go into the details. But yeah, we closed on a second home. It was exactly the same process as buying our first home, and we could get into that into this video for sure.
Got it. Okay, well, here's what I will do. I will make sure that this video comes out after whatever video you have that's talking about that home. So if you're seeing this video, it might be like several weeks after we recorded it, which is totally fine. But so if you had like, just a couple of tips for let's just go back to the first house, because a lot of people, they want to know about credit, about down payment, about what they should do. What would you say would be some, must-know tips for buying your first house?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So I actually just released a video on this, but in terms of doing real estate, but the principles are the same. Like I mentioned, like you buy one house, you buy another. The first step I would say is building your credit or having good credit, because unless you have a huge amount of money, or if you're in a super cheap place where you could buy your home in cash, which I'm not saying do that like solely, good credit will get you a good loan with a good interest rate. And you'll have a mortgage where you're having monthly payments to buy that house. In order to do that, you have to have good credit. How do you get good credit? You can open up a credit card, and the simplest thing to do is opening up a secured credit card, which it's like you have the credit check, or you can build credit, or you can typically do that really easily versus the other cards that require you to already have credit. secured credit card, pay those payments, every month, or, buy a stick of gum and then pay that off. And that starts building your credit. That's the first thing. The next thing is, you have to have a job, or you have to be able to prove that you have income to supplement the payments that you have on a loan, given that you get a loan. So lenders typically look at 1 to 2 years of income statements. So your tax returns, your pay stubs, all that stuff that prove that you can, one, be able to cover the payment. And also you have to have your bank statements for balances to show that if anything bad were to happen, you'd be able to pay that loan or somehow keep paying the loan until you go to the next thing. So I think those are the two main things when you're considering buying a house, is having good credit and making sure that you make money to be able to keep up with those payments. And then that goes into a whole slew of things once you start looking for a home to buy.
Right, absolutely. But those are some great tips. It's counterintuitive to folks who, may be all about the no debt method or the Dave Ramsey method, which is a great method for many people. But when you say stuff like, you got to get your credit score up, and a good way to do that is you open up a credit card, you might have some diehard Dave Ramsey fans, and they're like, what is going on? Because this is different advice than what I've been told.
They're like geeking out, like, oh, I can't do that. I'm never going to get a house.
And so
going into that, it's...
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's like when you do it like that, it's like you say, I can't buy a house because of these two things, like they're contradictory. But maybe you should ask, how can I buy a house even though these two things are contradictory? Mm-hmm. That's what I was just going to say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that there's a difference between opening up a credit card and making sure you pay your balance off in full every month, never spending a dime of interest so you can increase your credit score to buy real estate, than just getting consumer debt and spending 40% interest on, dumb stuff. Like, there's a big difference between those two approaches. And, it's interesting. So I don't usually talk about stuff like this because it can be very divisive and strange and just kind of touchy. But I was in an Uber, I was coming back home, and my Uber driver, I forget exactly where he was from, but somewhere in the Middle East. And he dropped me off at home. And he was like, wow, this house is so new. And I was like, oh, thank you. And he asked me, he's like, is this your house? And I said, yeah, I live here. This is my house. And he was like, it is my dream to one day, like my dream of all dreams is to one day own a house. And I was like, dude, you could probably do that like tomorrow. Like you credit, you go apply for a loan and you go get the loan. And he was like, well, no, you don't understand. It's against my religion to pay interest. And this goes back to the touchy thing. I don't know what religion it is. I didn't really go, ask him very much, but it's against his religion to pay any sort of interest, which on the one hand, you don't want to pay interest on credit cards, on personal loans, on a car, like you don't want to pay interest on things that go down in value. But I asked him, I was like, well, so right now you rent, right? You rent an apartment or rent a house? And he was like, oh, I rent a house. And I was like, and is your landlord a pretty savvy guy? Is he smart? And he was like, oh, yeah, he's a smart guy. And I was like, okay, so when you pay rent and your landlord takes that money to go pay the mortgage, taxes, insurance, he's also paying interest. So you are actually paying interest. It's just indirectly because he's probably renting out the house for more than what the cost is, which would be interest too. And he was like, well, no, because I'm not paying it. So we kind of went around in circles like that for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I asked him kind of on the flip side, I was like, well, what if you go buy a rental house and, let's say your mortgage is $3,000 per month and you get $3,200 per month in rent and your tenant pays the interest for you. And he was like, well, no, I can't do that because I would be writing the check to the bank. I'm not allowed to do that. And so I thought it was incredibly interesting that he could essentially have the same payment paying the same amount of interest, but because one would be paying a landlord who then pays the interest versus him paying the bank directly, he's not allowed to do it. So I didn't want to push him on his religion, but I just thought it was very interesting.
That is super interesting because that money going to the landlord, like, yeah, sure, the degree of separation from paying the interest is, greater than one from him. But then it's like, if you're paying taxes, like sales tax, for example, isn't that an interest that goes on and, pays the state government, the federal government, right, on interest also? And I don't know. I won't get into it, but that's really interesting to hear that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I didn't want to like. Obviously, this is this man's religion. He's very strict in his
Right.
belief. So that's if that's great for him, then great. But I was just kind of like, huh, what an interesting system where you can be shelling out all this money for a rental house, and then if you live in an area like I'm in Seattle, you're in LA. How could you ever buy a house if you have to come up with $500,000 in cash? And again, this guy was an Uber driver. Like it's probably he's probably far away from having $500,000 in cash, So it's just interesting. But anyway, moving on. I won't go into it really into this channel.
Sorry, guys.
I know exactly. It always happens, and we're in strange times right now. But okay, so I know a lot of people, they saw your video on Millennial Mortgage. Now they watch you on YouTube. Some folks may also, want to become influencers, want to start a YouTube channel. Do you have any advice? Because we're both very small YouTubers. Like I just got to 2,000 subscribers. Thank you guys for that, by the way. I appreciate each and every one of you. And you're about to hit 1,000. So we're very small. Neither of us are monetized. But what would you say to someone who wants to start? Because YouTube is a lot of work for essentially no money. For the first, in my case, I've been at it for 3 months, not monetized. You're at it similar time. We're probably going to be at it for 3 months before we make a penny. So what would you say to them, some just advice for starting on YouTube?
Oh, for sure. Like Todd said, like our goal is, or actually not our goal, but we're not monetized. Let me start off with that. We're just doing this literally for fun. But the basis that I would say, like if you want to get into being an influencer, starting YouTube, is do it solely for that. Get a fun factor in it. Don't do it for the money because like Todd said, we're not getting paid right now. We're not monetized. So don't do it for that reason. That'll come, like I like to say it like the monetization factor is the icing on top. Let's make the cake, right? Like let's get all the ingredients, like get a good camera. And honestly, you don't even really need to get a good camera. I film all my stuff on my phone. You don't really need a good computer. You just need to be able to have a computer that you're able to edit YouTube videos. I also have another YouTuber that I'm subscribed to. She does her editing on her phone. She films her on her phone, she edits on her phone, and she uploads from her phone. So the way that technology is today, if you have a smartphone, and if you don't, that's kind of weird right now, I guess. But if you have a smartphone, you can honestly do everything. Like you could post on Instagram, you can make TikTok videos, you can start a YouTube channel. And it's like, just do it for the fun of it. And then everything else will come. And that's also the next thing that I want to say. It's like, you just need to do it. If you're thinking about making a YouTube, if you're thinking about opening an IG account, just do it. You're obviously going to be grinding in the first few weeks, months, maybe even years. But the whole thing that I think me and Todd can agree on is the consistency of it, posting every week or as often as you can. These technologies like YouTube and Instagram, they really favor an algorithm. So if you're consistent, posting all the time, same time, and if you're engaging with the community, even if it's just one person or just your mom, like my mom and my future mother-in-law, they post and share my videos all the time. And I always like them. I always say thank you. And, that reaches places that I don't even know because they have their own networks, right? So I think that's the tip. Just start, and you don't have to do it for the money, or you probably shouldn't.
Right. Absolutely. Just do it because you love it, do it because you want to, and hopefully the money comes later. Well, awesome, man. I really appreciate you coming on. I'm so happy we're finally able to connect. I know after our videos came out, we've been DMing for several months, and I'm super happy we were able to actually meet. Virtually meet, but it was a pleasure to have you on. Is there any last thing you want to say to the good people out there of YouTube before we end up for today?
Watch the videos from start to end. Just kidding. I can't really say that. But, if you like the content, obviously Todd, I've been watching him for the 3 months that he's been doing it. I've been doing it for 7, or I think because I started in January. Mm-hmm. It's slow, but the thing is I'm enjoying it. Like, I think I didn't mention this, like after we bought a house, my commute time was mainly the same. And since I'm not driving myself, like I'm on the bus, train, reading a book, working because I have a Wi-Fi hotspot. I could pop open my laptop, or I'm planning out these YouTube videos. And then the same thing now that I'm working from home, it's like I get an extra hour of sleep, or I can use that extra hour to plan out a YouTube video or start working so I could end working earlier. And ever since stay in, I actually also didn't mention this. I'll probably mention it eventually. Is I actually picked up 2 part-time jobs.
Oh,
So with
wow.
all yeah. So I mean, you value your time, I value mine. If my time isn't spent making money, like I need to do something that will probably end up making more money anyway. That's at least what I've learned because I've wasted a lot of money in the past. I've invested in things that I probably shouldn't have invested in, or it wasn't really an investment. So it's like I'm doing a lot of catch up. I mean, Todd, he just turned 28. I'm turning 29 this year, so we're in the same age, like year, or just like he's a year younger than me. Like he's way further than I can be right now, so I have some catching up to do. But the whole point that I'm trying to get across to the viewers here is it all depends on what you do with your time. And if you're learning, if you're here on YouTube watching me and Todd, it means you're in the right direction. You're moving in the right direction. You want to learn. So thanks for watching, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. We'll see you at the next one. Peace.